I hope everybody likes the new color scheme. For the Reddit, we chose turd brown, apparently. Actual turd, actual brown. There's a new JavaScript senior developer interview. If you think about it, this guy could make a new one every 6 months. Like, this is a perennial piece of content that he can make over and over again. That you could just simply, every 6 months, the new frameworks are in. Every single time.
So the CV looks all good and everything, but it all comes down to how fit you are selecting JavaScript libraries. Imagine we had two options, the T3 and the T4 stack. Both use.
If I'm not mistaken, the T4 stack is a real one, and Theo really is not happy that the guy is just writing on Theo's stack name. Theo did do the T3 stack, and no, T4 is not a parody. If I'm not mistaken, T4 is like legitimately a T4 stack, right? If I'm not mistaken, the T4 stack is an app created, and one could imagine you wouldn't be very happy that you create this JavaScript framework, meta framework library thing, and then someone else just uses your name and goes one further, and it sounds better. It literally sounds better just because it has one higher number.
TypeScript and TRPC, but the T in T3 stands for Theo, a skater boy from California, whereas the T in T4 stands for technology. Now T3 uses Tailwind, while T4 uses Tamagui. Tailwind has a huge community of 4,994 hodlers online in the Discord versus 584 Tamaguchis. But the Tamaguchis are more cutting edge, where the last commit for Tailwind was last week. For Tamagui, we push on safe. T3 is primarily focused on WebEx, while T4 is immediately cross-platform, because T4 natively compiles to mobile as React Native through Expo. Now Tailwind doesn't map one-on-one.
I really don't understand. You know, it's so funny. This happens every single time with JavaScript. Somebody makes something, right? And something gets popular. Okay, Tailwind. The moment Tailwind got popular, every time you're like, I want to use Tailwind, people are like, psh, you use Tailwind. We use Nano CSS. You use Nano. We use Pico CSS. Like, it's just like immediate, just sheer breakdown. And I have no idea what to use anymore. I have absolutely no idea. The moment something becomes popular, all of a sudden it's just like every time you say it, someone just immediately tells you why you're using the wrong thing. I go like in chat, I'm like, I'm going to use Sentry. And they're like, Sentry? You should be using. And then they fill you in on what they're using. It's the worst thing that could ever exist.
Want to React Native, but the T3 stands have tried for a long time to get it compatible with Tailwind CSS React Native, which was renamed to NativeWind once it started working, which was abandoned for a long time, but was made compatible with React Native after its developer, the 1X dev, joined Expo in 2023, and now it's fully compatible with mobile anyway, so forget this whole part. Now the real problem comes in when we look at auth and OR. T3 uses NextAuth, or its hosted solution Clerk. Now NextAuth is framework agnostic, but it doesn't work on mobile. We could of course use Clerk Expo to make it work on mobile, or hack the NextAuth.js exposed REST API and see where things go. But even if you fix the NextAuth client, NextAuth also doesn't work with HONA workers for free edge deployment on Cloudflare. T3 also uses
I'm sorry, but it's just when it's said with such intense music and the funniness behind it, it's just, I watch this and I have to think, what the hell do you think programming is like as somebody with 6 months of experience? Like, what do you think happens? Like, you listen to this, dude, I would give up. Dude, I know. It's just like, oh, you want to make an application? Well, sit down. It's just like, this is your brain on JavaScript. It's shocking how many things have to go into this to make an application. Like, I understand it's like, it's fairly easy. Like, once you know everything. And one thing okay, so I'm going to give a really hot take. One thing I think that JavaScript engineers, or whatever you call the people that have made this experience, I think one thing that's really missing from their side is that they grew up in a world with no Docker. And then they got, then Docker, and then these different ways to start deploying. And then things got a little bit easier. And they saw each like piece of the way happen. We're no longer rolling our own auth. We are now using OAuth. Well, then OAuth gets wrapped again by something else. And you kind of walked through this path of all the things that have happened for the last like 10 years, and you really get each piece, and you get it fundamentally like how it has happened. And so you are the boiled frog, all the way boiled, all the way up to the final degree, but you actually get all the trade-offs and why each thing has ever happened. But the new person, they're just getting tossed in and landing into the boiled water, and they have no conception of what it took to get from we used to roll our own auth into we now have like Clerk. That whole thing. Like I remember when I was making a website, I started to be able to, there was actually two different forms of auth. There was like open, it was called like open login or something like that from Google, which used a different state flow than the one from Yahoo Mail, which was open auth 2 or OpenAuth 1, OpenID. There you go. Thank you, Judah. OpenID. And so I would actually use OpenID for one login flow, and then I'd use OAuth for another login flow. But I first developed a name and password login in which I developed my own salting and hashing and storing and all that kind of stuff. I rolled my own auth. Yes, I rolled my own auth, and it really wasn't that bad. I was a junior in college, and it worked. I asked people and Googled how to do it, and I rolled it all, and then I got OpenID, and then I got all these things, and it wasn't actually all that bad. It wasn't all that bad. Like I was like, wow, I did that. It probably was fairly. I'm sure there was a way to break it. I used that SHA-256 hashing of the password along with the salt, and then check the hash against some sort of records to know is it in there or not, right? And but still, like I went through all of that, and guess what? I understand why Clerk is made. I get it. Like I do understand it. But I also understand that OAuth login flow is like not that complicated. You got to like hand them a little something, a little state token. They go off and say, here we go. They come back with the state token, and you have to give them an address, and it has to be HTTPS, and then you find out, oh, okay, there we go. We're going to do that. Like it's not that bad to just do OAuth yourself. But I also understand the convenience. And so what I'm trying to say with all of this is that once you've gone through it all, you understand why things are the way they are, and you understand why it's easy or uneasy in these things. I know it's like 50 lines of code to do yourself for an OAuth login, but someone that's new, you genuinely have no clue what's happening. You think login is so complicated, you need a third party. Like honestly, try doing OAuth yourself. Go get the OAuth library that's already available in every single language. You can hand it a couple URLs, override your local host. You may have to get some like local secure credits and all that. Bada bing, bada boom, Shazam, it works. And you'll go, okay, that's not that complicated. I guess I can understand why you could do it yourself, but maybe I want to use Clerk or whatever. I don't know what the soup du jour of login is. I only know Clerk because I've heard Theo mention it so many times. Like that's the only way I know this place. And like you could do that as well. You at least have an idea of what they're doing behind the scenes. But OAuth isn't that simple. At the same time, it can cause because there's tons of user management involved. That's why services. No, I get it. I understand that there's like user management and all that kind of stuff. And you get to make that choice. Like that you do. You get to make that choice. But you should at least understand what goes into that choice before you go off and just hide everything from yourself. But that's like my personal opinion, okay? Do whatever you want to do. Scalability concerns. Are there scalability concerns? Don't worry. Your 0 users will scale amazingly with your own OAuth path.
Prisma, which is super inefficient and ugly. I mean, just try a simple query. If your result is in the first row in the first JSON, it will still revalidate every row in every JSON. Now T4 uses Supabase for user data and sells it to the darknet. But there is also a Lucia branch for this, which works with any ORMO database, if you know how to write the adapter. Now Lucia and Supabase work on mobile flawlessly. Now instead of Prisma, T4 uses Drizzle, straight out of the gate. Supabase and Lucia are edge compatible, which
Drizzle is the most based Twitter account of all time. I one time had somebody insult me on the internet, and I went to go look at it. Drizzle had my back. Drizzle was out there nuts and people on the internet, straight out of Ukraine or wherever they're from. Damn, Drizzle, from one heart to another.
Which means if we deploy in Hono, we can scale to infinity and beyond for $0 if our bundle size is under 1 megabyte. Which is also why we cannot use Prisma, because Prisma bloats the package just like this company's HR department. Now Drizzle also works on the edge.
Yeah, but couldn't Drizzle just...
Silence. Drizzle could work on T3, but the documentation hasn't been started yet. Now
Couldn't do that with Drizzle. But yeah, could you? No, silence. Oh man, I've been in meetings like this. This reminds me of working, like my first days of work, where you just like get inundated with all the things that happen. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Lucia would also work with T3, but I haven't tried that, so I'm not going to consider. Now T4 also uses helper libraries like ValidBot, $1 Million JS, PrettyK, Virtual Edit, and JotUI. Now we could of course extend T3 with those, but we would first extend T3 with Pusher for WebSockets. Actually better to use Socketi. And Plausible and Umami for analytics, because Google Analytics is Google Analytics. And we would also add Zustand to abandon Redux from our vocabulary, just to reintroduce it once they abandon Zustand. JavaScript. All of this creates an insanely huge bundle.
Okay, so at this point, I actually can't tell if those libraries were real or not. Okay, they're all real. Okay, I'm just letting you know at this point, I've left the realm of my understanding of the JavaScript ecosystem. And I've officially landed into the place where I go, I don't even know if that's real anymore. But I purchased the fact that they exist and they are real.
Which we're lucky to expand with bundle reducers and next bundle analyzer. I love it. Now T3 would typically host on Vercel, which is a cash cow, so it's better to use PlanetScale, which is a cash cow, so it's better to use Railway, which is like Heroku, which is now owned by Salesforce, and therefore Evil. Vercel with a V, like in Evil. And Evil with an E, like in Emacs Live. And Emacs Live with a C, like in free hosting on Cloudflare. T4, we would just host straight on the edge.
Of glory.
Which means if we can get Slack to compile under 1 mega, then we can scale it to infinity for $0 on Hono without sweating. The only bottleneck then is our database. Not even the database, but the write-offs. SQL.
How do you get a JavaScript piece of code under 1 megabyte? There is at least minimally React coming in there. That's like 250K or some nonsense. How do you honestly do that? I know to me it sounds crazy to have 100 or to have 1 megabyte, 1 million characters of JavaScript to describe your backend. Now remember, it's been minified, so all the big characters turn into little characters, right? So it's all tiny. Like it's much tinier than it would be, right? It's tiny. It's tiny, and still that is a lot. React minified is 38K, 3.8% of your budget. It's a lot.
Light is by definition on the edge, but it's still slower than speed of light. Cloudflare says they're working on that. They say that every week. Next week is Cloud and Innovation Week, so next week is different. Now we don't have the source of Slack anyway. So now we could of course rewrite the whole stack from React Next to Vue Next, Svelte Kit, Solid and Solid Start, Quickie and Quickie Market. And each comes with their own whole ecosystem, like Vue Croissant or Next Beefy or Svelte Wasabi, to reuse 0% of our code. Don't write this down. Next week all of this is gonna change. So,
that Solid Start, Svelte Kick, Quick, and Quickie Mart. It felt too real. This is feeling too real. It's starting to hurt a little bit. Now I'm getting a little emotional, and this has gone from satire to just your life as a web dev.
but then again, we might as well rewrite straight to Rust. Good idea.
I didn't say anything.
Now the backend we can compile to WebAssembly and host on WorkerRS for free. The front end? Now for the
ShuttleRS.
desktop app supporting the React web code, we would need a native web view. We would use Tauri because Electron is bloated and ships its own Chromium. Now Tauri is basically like a V8 one.
What is V8?
Exactly. Spotify, Slack, Discord.
How many people understand the difference between a runtime and V8 in chat go right now? Type 1. Type 1 if you understand it. We got a lot of zeros in that. We got an unhealthy amount of zeros. Type 69 in the chat if you know what V8 is. Okay, we got a lot of 69s. Okay, so that's good. I see some 68s and some 420s in there. I see some 96s, which is really hard for me to see with my dyslexia. Okay, the simplest, most skinny answer I can give you is this, is that V8 runs JavaScript. It needs to be able to set a timeout. So it's going to need to be able to have a way to, you can hook in and tell it how to do a timeout. It needs to be able to like make network requests. So you have to give it like access to a stack and stuff like that. It needs to be able to do all these different kind of things, right? It needs to be able to do all the stuff outside of JavaScript. So the runtime is like all the stuff that's required to run, where V8 is like the thing that runs JavaScript. So Chrome has its own set timeout. Node has its own set timeout. Does that make sense? So Node is the runtime, correct. So when you do fs.read file, you're pretty much, V8 goes, oh, I have a function that you own. I'm going to call out to the platform or the runtime and say, hey, can you execute this function with these arguments? And so that it knows how to go, okay, I, Node, now have to go and read a file, get that file, convert, say, that file into a buffer, which is a Node object, right? And then hand it back to V8 and say, okay, here's the results from that function.
Office. And most importantly, a virus-free antivirus.
He bleeped Microsoft. Let's go. There was a bleep of Microsoft in there.
Office. And most importantly, a virus-free antivirus. All use Electron, but we will use Tauri because while Electron is a compiled app with a web view that can render Rust compiled WebAssembly, Tauri is a Rust app, and we save on RAM. So T4 has 1000% code sharing, performance, production readiness, performance, lean optimized bundle size, free hosting on Hono runtime edge workers, cutting edge, performance, 1000% type safe styling, free hosting, a purple landing page, but everybody uses performance, Tailwind, so you know, years ago, we would just set up a PHP and SQL and alarm stack on a $5 server with jQuery, and our 5 users would be happy. But this, of course, would require backups, server management, security, which I know how to do, but they lost trust in me after our 4th user data cleanup this month. In fact, everybody's changing back to servers. 2024 is the year of the serverlessness. They said that 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness, serverlessless. Oh, the absurdity of that statement is profound. Which is funny because Terminal Shop, not serverless. Our Vim ASCII game engine, not serverless. Think about it.
They say that every year, but this year they're out of VC funding. We have an entire abandoned office building, so might as well go with JavaScript. So we would use Next.js, HoloGraphQL, TypeScript, AWS, and Supabase.
I didn't notice that. I was just wondering. In my head, I was just like, he's drawing a symbol, and I know he's drawing something. But what is the symbol? We're gonna use Supabase, AWS, TypeScript, Apollo, and Next.js. Satan. The Satan stack. The Satan stack. Classic Satan.
What is Kubernetes?
Ah. I know this might seem like a fun way to spend your time in the age of AGI, but this is a public service announcement to all senior engineers trying to learn all of this in online courses to get a job in today's developer market. My advice to you is
Fish don't fry in the kitchen.
I liked it. I liked it. Don't write this down. Next week, it's all going to change. The realest part of that video. Yeah. Give it a like. Absolutely. Subscribed. Already done. Go sign up for the Patreon. The world will fall apart. There you go. That was awesome. That was really great. And also, again, you know, I watch these videos. I laugh at some of the pain I've experienced. I've been able to largely dodge a lot of that pain working on tools. But now, I just have to think about you new people. I just can't stop thinking about that. What are you guys going to do? What are you guys going to do? I always feel so bad for you guys the most. You have so much more things to try to get started just to get started than I've ever seen in my lifetime. And you know what the worst part about all of this? You know all the things he mentioned? You know all those little pieces and bits and everything? At any mid-sized companies, none of that actually happens. Like any company that's like 2 years old will use effectively nothing that was stated in that video. And so all of those really nice, like all of that really beautiful and lovely and nice work you've done to learn all those technologies so that you can create a blog that has 17 different technologies glued together, and you finally think you might just understand all that as you're hosting and serverless, you're going to go to a job in which still has Moo tools, and you're going to try to figure out how to make sure that that website doesn't crash. What happens at a job and what happens for you to think that you need a job are very, very different. That's why, as I've said over and over, and my last job used Moo tools, 2 jobs of mine ago used Moo tools. That's why I've said it over and over again. People are always like, how do I make a splash with my resume? How do I, what front end project is flashy that allows me to stand out? And it's just like, you know what's the flashiest project? The one you really liked and just deep dived on. Okay? It's the same advice that I give you, or it's the same advice that I give you when it comes to working out. There is probably the best workout you could do, but there's the workout that you will do that will make you work out again tomorrow. You know which one's better? The one that makes you keep doing it. The one that makes you excited. The one that makes you come back again. Just like nutrition, just like saving money, it's just like personal projects. Do the thing that's going to make you come back again. That is always better than perfection. And I swear, there's so many of you right now that watched that video and actually probably checked out half those technologies, and you have a list of things you want to learn before you actually make something. You're like, oh, I'm gonna master Tailwind, and I'm gonna build like a little to-do app with that. And I'm gonna get into Redux and state management. I'm gonna master that and build a to-do app with that. And I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Oh, then I better check out Svelte and do a to-do app, and I better check out Solid.js and do a to-do app, and I better check out Quickie Mark and do a to-do app, and then there we go. And then once I get all those, I'm gonna learn about Planet Scale. I'm gonna learn about oh my gosh, I got even Terso. I gotta get Terso in there. I gotta go do this, and I gotta go do that. You just like get like 9,000 things, and you never actually do anything. Like, it's good to investigate, but make something. Make a game in whatever language you want, rendering it in any way you want, just to make something. No, you don't want to make games? You don't have to. You probably have something that bothers you. You probably have something that really bothers you, some manual task, something that just really just pisses you off. Or maybe you think you have a better way you could search your file system for certain files and all that. Go make it. Go use Rust or Go or JavaScript. Go do that and get really good at it and make it really good and make exactly what you wanted. Zig. Great time to use Zig. Honestly, great time to use Zig. Can I show some love to YouTube chat? They're the real ones. YouTube chat, you just got smaller because of Flip. Thanks, Flip. Thanks, Flip. Anyways, that's my advice to you. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree, and I've seen on the internet, I can think of a very specific tweeter that tells you that if you don't learn React, you are effectively hamstringing your career. I don't know, maybe. You know the person I would like to hire? The person that said, I got really interested in electronics, so I made all my own electronics, and I was able to I made my own camera system and transferred those things over like 16 Raspberry Pis, and I did all this stuff, and I just really got into just making stuff on Raspberry Pis and little electronics. I'd be like, oh, wow. Tell me more about that, because that's interesting. That's something that's cool. You learned something. Tell me more about how you learned something. Because honestly, the person that can take a bunch of third-party services and go, it's like, okay, cool. You can read a little bit of docs and experiment for 6 hours. You didn't build anything. What'd you build? Tell me something that you did. I don't think hooking up a bunch of third-party services to display your cat photos is impressive. I'm sorry. I just don't think it's that cool. I just don't. I think anybody can do that. I'm a professional gluer, all right? I know. Then you should fix that. You should try something else. Try not being a gluer. Most managers, CEOs don't think like that. I think you're wrong. I think you're dead wrong. I think most people that are involved in the interviewing, you have your frontline interviewers, and you know what they want? They want to hear you say, you know, when I struggled, I was struggling with this team management and dynamics, and this is how I overcame the struggle with those team dynamics, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, you've made it past the HR view. Now you're into the technical view. And they're going to be like, hey, tell me something you've done. You're going to wow them with your super cool hardware story that you made a skateboard that could drive because you wanted to make a skateboard that could drive. It only went 3 miles an hour because you didn't know how to make a fast motor, but nonetheless, you made a gas-powered skateboard, and it was a lot of fun. Super cool. right? Or you just did something stupid for the sake of doing it, and it just shows them that you have the talent and skill and commitment to see something through. And then you got to talk to a manager where, again, I mean, last time I struggled, I had conflict, and then I solved the conflict. That's like most interviews. Hey, the name. Is the interview agent.